There are stories that arrive with thunder, loud, unavoidable, demanding to be heard. And then there are stories that arrive quietly, like a shift in the wind or the gentle weight of memory settling back where it belongs. These stories do not shout. They do not announce themselves. They simply sit with you until you realize they have changed something inside you. This is one of those stories. Here on Voices in Color, we speak of the lives shaped by silence, by land, by history, and by the quiet strength that does not need to prove itself. This is the story of Elias Ward and the valley that remembered him long after the world forgot his name. Before the fence, before the gate, before the conflict and the turning of quiet into tension, the valley lived in peace. The land itself held memory, not in books, not in speeches, but in the soil, in the grain of old barn wood, in the path of a creek that had never changed its course. The valley had seen generations come and go, but some people leave deeper footprints than others. Elias was one of them. The Ward family had worked this land for 3 generations. The first Elias, his grandfather, was a man of few words. His silence was not emptiness. It was depth. When he spoke, it felt as though the earth itself paused to listen. He taught the boy, the Elias of this story, a lesson that would become the foundation of his life. The land isn't something you own. The land is something you belong to. If you listen long enough, it will tell you how to stay. And the boy listened. He learned the rhythm of sunrises, the patience of fence mending, the language of wind through grass. He learned belonging. The second Elias, his father, carried the ranch through harder times. He worked with hands that never stopped aching, through seasons that gave less than they promised. He was strong, but strength without rest becomes burden, and burden becomes silence of a different kind. The boy watched the good man exhaust himself in the name of holding on, and he learned fear, not of the land, but being swallowed by responsibility too heavy to speak aloud. So he left, not in anger, not in rebellion, in survival. The city was loud, not just in sound, but in expectation. Success came, but belonging did not. Success without belonging is simply exhaustion with decoration. So one morning before the city could wake, Elias packed what mattered, a few tools, a few clothes, and his grandfather's old maps, and drove back to the valley. The moment he stepped out of the truck, the land recognized him. The air shifted. The silence welcomed him. Nothing demanded anything of him. He simply belonged again. He rebuilt fences, fed the horse, Juniper, walked barefoot on soil that felt like memory. This was not loneliness. This was return. But peace never exists without being challenged, especially when land holds value that others believe they can refine, regulate, or control. Construction began beyond the ridge. New houses, new roads, a development named Sage Bend, with matching lawns, polished entry gates, and rules for how one ought to live. The Homeowners Association formed quickly, and at the center of it stood Caroline Briggs, a woman whose life had been built on structure, rules, and the belief that order prevents chaos. She believed she was protecting something. She never realized she was trying to control something that had existed long before she did. Her first letter was polite. Her second was firm. Her third carried threat disguised as procedure. Elias read them all and burned them one by one. Some things are not answered with words. Then came the fence. Tall, black, steel, built across the only road that led to Elias's home. At its center, a lock gate, one key, held by the HOA, held by Caroline. This was no misunderstanding. This was control. Elias walked to the gate, placed his palm on the cold metal. Juniper nudged his shoulder. The valley held its breath. He did not shout. He did not argue. He did not look away. He simply stood there, because silence is a language that only the land can teach. For days, Elias sat at the gate on a small wooden stool, not blocking it, not protesting, simply existing with it. People drove past. Some avoided eye contact. Some whispered. Some felt something they couldn't explain. Caroline felt it too. She didn't know how to respond to someone who could not be moved by pressure. And control feels fragile in the presence of someone who does not want anything from you. Inside the house, the cedar trunk waited. Inside that trunk were maps, hand-drawn by his grandfather, marked with care, marked with truth. On those maps was a narrow strip of land beneath the road, land that had never been sold, never transferred, never given away, forgotten on paper, but remembered by the land. Elias took the map to the county records office. Martha, who had known the valley longer than any development had existed, understood immediately. That land was always yours, she said. Paperwork moved. Signatures were made. $48 exchanged hands. The land beneath the gate returned legally to the Ward family. The valley exhaled. At dawn the next morning, Elias walked to the gate. He removed the HOA lock, placed his own lock in its place. The gate did not change, but its meaning did. Control shifted. Quietly, permanently. Caroline confronted him. She saw the lock. She saw the truth. And something in her, something buried beneath decades of trying to build safety out of control, cracked. I didn't understand this place, she said. Her voice was not sharp anymore. It was human. Elias did not gloat, did not rise above her. He simply offered presence. Because some lessons are not about winning. They are about returning to what is real. Together, they made a new agreement. The gate would stay. Access would be unconditional and permanent. No letters, no enforcement, no control, just understanding. Time passed. Winter softened the world. Spring returned with quiet color. Neighbors learned not through meetings, but through watching. Caroline learned to walk slower, to listen more, to speak only when she had something true to say. She and Elias would sometimes share silence at the fence line, not as opponents, but as people who had learned something the hard way. The valley had taught them both, not through force, but through memory. Some victories do not announce themselves. They do not look like triumph. They look like peace. Some strength does not roar. It simply does not move. If you are listening to this, and you are tired, if you've been carrying your life quietly without applause, if you've been standing without recognition, hear this. You do not have to shout to be strong. You do not have to force your belonging. You do not have to fight to be real. Just remain. Stay rooted. Stay gentle. Stay yourself. The world may not always see you, but the land remembers. This is Voices in Color, where quiet lives, where dignity breathes, where we rise softly but cannot be moved,